Hello, beautiful traders in the house. Welcome to the new week, 24th to 28th of March 2025. Whichever part of the world you're joining us from, welcome, Mambo, Salbona, Ekabo. Yeah. And as always, I'm Atomashi Dania, First Traders Global Market Analyst. So let's take a look at the market and what it has in store for us. Some of the pairs we're going to be looking at include the NZD USD, AUD USD, the USD JPY, and the USD CAD, the loonie, ladies and gentlemen. So let's start with our fundamental analysis. What do we have? Today looks like the PMI day, beautiful PMI day. We've had PMI data across board from France, that's Europe, Germany, also Europe, um, the UK. Okay, all this data have been released already, and we're expecting for that of the US at about 1:45 p.m. GMT. Okay. What else? Yes, no more PMI data, but we expect a speech by Governor Bailey from the UK. Okay, considering the NZD and AUD pairs, USD JPY and USD CAD for Tuesday, there isn't much economic data expected across board. Tuesday seems to be a very great, very nice technicals day with no high impact news expected. However, we have a barrage of three medium impact news, which, if combined together, could significantly shake up the market sometimes. So the CB consumer confidence, new home sales, and the Richmond manufacturing index. Let's look out for that for Tuesday. Now, for Wednesday, we're expecting the Australian CPI data, inflation data. This is important because inflation has been one of the problems plaguing Australia, especially after the COVID. Right now, inflation levels are currently above within the 2 to 3% mark. However, uh, there are measures put in place right now to try to make sure that um, those data that level comes down. The previous data was 2.5%. Okay, any decrease of this level 2.3, 2.1, 2.4. Okay, could boost the Australian dollar. Okay, pay attention to that. And of course, from direct correlations to the Australian dollar, the New Zealand dollar could also be affected from this. So you want to pay attention to this if you're trading either of both pairs, the AUD USD or the NZD USD. Next for Tuesday, also medium impact, the core durable goods and durable goods from the US could also impact the markets. Let's pay attention to that. As always, for Thursday, we do not have anything that affects the AUD USD except the final GDP quarter on quarter and the unemployment claims. Okay, for Thursday, let's pay attention to that too, especially GDP data, quite important. Now for Friday, the core PCE price index, the big guy, very important because it's one of the indicators being monitored right now, considering the US Federal Reserve Bank's measures put in place. So it's one of the inflation um, data, okay, that's usually being monitored, especially in the US markets. So let's pay very, very key attention to that. So the core PCE price index, the revised UM consumer sentiment on Friday, okay, will affect all these pairs, the USD CAD, USD JPY, NZD USD, and AUD USD. Let's pay attention to that. The only technicals day we have for this week seems to be Tuesday, with no high impact data expected. And as far as the AUD USD or NZD USD are concerned, okay, every other day, or USD JPY and USD CAD, every other day is quite significant and contains high impact data. So that's that for fundamental analysis for all these pairs. It's also important to pay attention to oil, especially if you're trading the USD CAD. Very, very important. Now let's go straight into the chart and see what the market has got in store for us, as always. So we start with the NZD USD. What do we have here? We see somewhat of a bullish change of character on the daily chart. Okay, right here. But there's something to note. We also see some positive divergence, indicating that there's the possibility of a strong bullish run okay, on this pair, right? Also further indicated by the fact that if you the last major bearish trend we had, price crossed $23.6 mark. Okay, it's currently strongly above it, but it's not yet touched the 38.2% mark on Fibonacci. All right, so let's pay attention to the Fibonacci on this guy. However, if you're dealing with the line chart, it would seem as though it's already touched 38.2% mark on Fibonacci. It's still far from it actually. So that gives us something to look out for. It's possible he wants to attack the 38.2% mark and possibly go above it. That's the NZD USD on daily chart. On the 4-hour chart, however, with reference to the bullish change of character, we see price moving nicely along an ascending channel. Testament to the bullish momentum we have on this pair right now, moving cyclically and very steadily along. Right now, um, last week it touched the resistance border, reacted strongly to it, and it's currently below the halfway line. The halfway line we see right there is the yellow mark, the yellow thin line right there. It's currently below that. All right, price has been moving strongly bearish in the past 2 trading days or 24. We are 1 to 2 trading days on NZD USD. Okay, and it looks like it wants to attack the 200-day moving average on the 4-hour chart. Looks like it wants to attack the 400-day moving average on the 1 hour, 4-hour chart. Now, entry for me on this guy will be focused around a very nice trend line, a trend line on the 1-hour chart, um, drawn from this swing guy all the way here, extending downwards. Okay, price seems to be struggling to break past that. Now, for target levels, if price manages to break significantly above 0.5740, okay, there's a good chance that it could hit 5754, 5770. If it goes above that, 5785, and above that, 5800 psychological level. And if it's adventurous enough, it could go as high as 5720, which would coincide with the resistance border of the channel right there. On the flip side, however, if price manages to break past the significant swing low here, 0.5722, which in some ways also has to coincide with this significant swing high level here. Okay, so it seems to be a somewhat other block. Okay, in a way, if it breaks significantly below that right now, this week, 5722, then we see there's a good chance that price could target 5704 or 5700 psychological level. And if it goes below that, 5693, playing around that, if it goes below that, you could see price target 0.5680 psychological level. Okay, 5680, yes. And if it goes below that, it will mean it has broken below the support border of the channel to touch 5660. Now, in the short term, generally, on this guy, I am majorly bearish. Okay, with respect to the channel, it looks like it wants to attack the 200-day moving average right here. That's 5704. Okay, if it goes below that 5693 and below that 5680, I'm going to stop my sell right there. But more conservatively on the 200-day moving average in the short term. But in the longer term, in the general sense of things, I'm bullish on this guy, following the channel nicely along an ascending ride. That's my take on the NZD USD. Next, for the AUD USD, what do we see? Of course, we still see price. Um, it's not broken strongly beyond or above this very significant support level of October 2022. It's still very much around within the range, very much within the range. So you got to pay attention to that. Um, in the shorter term, however, we see that it's also moving nicely along an ascending channel. And price seems to have touched the support border of that channel. But if you draw your channel with respect um, this way, with respect to the swing low, it would mean that it's still not at the support border yet. Okay, drawing channels is relative um, to the trader, just like drawing trend line is relative to the trader, and it's also dependent very strongly on the most recent significant swing high or swing low. So you want to pay attention to that. Now, if price strongly breaks below this other block level of 6260, there's a good chance it could touch 6240. Okay, and below that 622, 0.6222. If it happens to break past the channel below, it could touch 6200 psychological level or 6184. But to be conservative, I'm just going to put my money on 0.6222 for the AUD USD. On the flip side, if it breaks past resistance level 0.6295 or psychological level of 6300, considering the fact that we have something called an inverse heads and shoulder on the 30 minutes chart right here. Okay, with a nice trend line right there. It looks like price has broken strongly above it and wants to target 6305. However, it's important to keep in mind that it's also moving nicely within a channel. Okay, so if it does move up, we could see a brief movement to 6300 before it starts heading down to the support border again. Because of correlations from the NZD USD, in the short term, I'm bearish, okay, with the possibility that price wants to target the support border. And if it does that, I switch to the bullish moves in the longer term for the week, okay. On the flip side, if price manages to break past 6295, 6300, of course, again, price could touch 6328. If it goes beyond that, 6355, and above that, 6376. If it goes beyond that, we could see price touch psychological level of 6400 or 6427. Never rule out the possibility of large moves because this is the Trump week. Okay. So let's not rule out the possibilities of large moves on this guy because, of course, Trump is in power again. You must always prepare for the eventuality, the possibility of large moves up or large moves down based on comments and decisions he usually makes on a whim. Okay. That's for the AUD USD. Now, the next guy to look at is the USDJPY. Of course, as always, it's still playing around the strong support border right there. We want to pay attention to that. Okay, on the weekly chart. Same weekly chart, still moving nicely along the channel. Inner channel within a larger channel, channel within a channel. It seems to have touched the support border of the larger channel, but it's not convincing enough yet. Looks like it still wants to head back down and it's forming consolidation levels to touch the support border of the channel. Okay. Um, on the 4 hour chart, however, what do we have? We have price from something quite interesting. Initially, it broke away from an ascending channel. Okay, broke past it and then formed another ascending channel after that. Now, with respect to those channels, price went back up to retest the support border of the smaller channel in the red line right there. Um, went back to retest the support border of the smaller channel. Okay. So right now, with its current patterns and its outlook, it's reacted significantly to psychological level of 150.00. Okay. And from that, we had a very strong drop, sharp bearish move up until 148.19. So if price happens to break past the psychological level of 150.00, okay, then I would consider trading target levels for resistance as 150.17, above that 150.31, above that 150.50. It goes beyond that 150.74 and above that 151.00 psychological level, ladies and gentlemen. But if price happens to head back down, okay, and breaks below 149.12 other block level, there's a good chance it could touch 148.88. Okay, below that 148.64, below that 148.40, below that 148.19, and again, a good touch psychological level of 148.00. We've been having strong moves on this guy. The BOJ, the Bank of Japan, has kept rates steady, no interest rate hike, neither was there a cut. Okay, so what we're looking at is possible hawkish comments from the Bank of Japan, or especially Governor Ueda. And if it so happens that it travels again back into the range of 148.00 and breaks below that, there's a good chance it could touch 147.59. Below that, 147.00 psychological level or 146.50. Now, in the short term, in the longer term, in the course of the week, I favor bearish positions on this guy, on USDJPY. I'm still strongly bearish, okay, because it was still because of the large bearish range right here on the weekly chart, for the possibility of this guy forming consolidation levels to head back down. Okay, but again, in the context of consolidation or three rising, falling three method, rather, we could have bull, 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 then a drop for next week. So there's also a good chance that price could target or retest the support border of the inner channel right here. Hence, it all depends for me on the breakout. Okay, I'm watching the breakout level very strongly. If I see a strong break of 150.00 psychological level, and I'm attacking resistance levels, okay, in the future, in this week rather, targeting the range of the support border, which could be 151.00 or 151.30 support border of the inner channel. Pay attention to that. So I'm neutral, okay, depending on where the break happens for USD JPY. Now, finally, the last but not the least, the next pair we're considering here is the USD CAD. This guy just loves its range. Apart from the fact that it's formed a negative divergence on the daily chart, as we can see right here. Um, Still on the daily chart, we see that price has been moving nicely within a range from at about, so yeah, the 18th of December up until now. That's about 4 months, right? It just loves its range. So it looked as though it was going to touch the 50% retracement level after the nice bearish run up. Okay. But if you look at the context of things from this swing low, significant swing low right here, still it hasn't touched the 50% mark. Okay. Approached it, but didn't touch the 100-day moving average. That's the thick blue line we see right there. So it's still within the range. Touched the significant level of 1.4159 and then went back up into the range again. What range are we talking about? The range is 1.4320 and 1.4450. It's also relative to some other levels here, which I'm going to show you in a bit. Okay, went back up within the course of last week and seems like it has formed consolidation patterns 1, 2, 3, 4, and wants to go on the falling three method to head back down to touch the 100-day moving average right here. Okay, for me on the lower time frame, it's moving nicely along a symmetrical triangle. Okay, so the area of entry right now will depend on the breakouts, of course. Now, if it breaks above the triangle and psychological level of 1.4400, we could see price touch 4420. Above that, 4450 key resistance level. And if it goes above that, 4484 or 4500 psychological level, and then beyond that, 4530. Don't rule anything out. Um, Trump is in office again. Huge volatility could be expected at any point in time. But if price happens to break past our key support level of 4320, the next most likely target could be psychological level of 4300. You want to put it there, right there. Pay attention to that level. Okay. And if it does break strongly below that, which would mean it would break below the symmetrical triangle, it could touch 4278, 4245, 4219, or 4185. And by so doing, it could most likely touch again the 50% mark, okay, or the 100-day moving average on the daily chart. So that's that for USDCAD, and that's that for our weekly market analysis. Thank you again for joining. Remember, the trend is your friend, and trade within the trend. Bye bye.